First of all, I would like to apologise to not being able to present to you in Spanish, and I hope that my English is clear and concise. So yes, thank you for inviting me, and I'd like to talk about the SWORD project, which I've been managing since 2005. Okay, so I'll just begin with a bit of history and background to the scheme. I'll then provide you with a general overview of the cases we get reported. I'll then focus in a bit more detail on the two main groups of cases we get reported, which is asthma and the asbestos-related diseases. I'll then talk a little bit about the other diseases we do get reported to SWORD, and then also mention some other sources of respiratory data we collect within THOR. And then finally, I just want to talk a little bit about the sort of requests for data we get from our physicians, and then a general discussion. Just to provide you with some history and background, SWORD stands for the Surveillance of Work-Related and Occupational Respiratory Disease, and it was founded in 1989, so it's been going a long time, and it was founded by Professor Corbett MacDonald. And at the end, it was initially endorsed by the British Thoracic Society and the Society of Occupational Medicine. And in the beginning, it was set up to enable both respiratory physicians and occupational physicians to voluntarily report cases of work-related and occupational respiratory disease that they see during their clinical practice. So the physicians reporting to SWORD are asked to only report incident or new cases that they've seen during their working practice during their reporting month. Initially we asked all the specialists to fill in and return a simple postal report card once a month. And at the beginning, we didn't set any criteria or guidelines for reporting. It was merely if they believed that the case was caused or aggravated by work, because we wanted to maximise participation as much as possible. Even though I'm going to be concentrating on SWORD today, it's important to remember that SWORD is just one part of the Health and Occupation Research Network. So we actually have other schemes you can see there for dermatologists who can report to Epiderm, occupational physicians who now have their own scheme, OPRA. We also have a scheme for infectious diseases at work. Since 2005, we've had a scheme which enables GPs who've had some training in occupational medicine to report. Greyed out at the bottom there, you can also see we had some other schemes which have now stopped data collection, for instance, for rheumatologists and psychiatrists. Okay, just to show you how all the systems link together in the UK, a person with work-related ill health is probably most likely to go and see their GP, in which case we hope that we'll capture the case through our GP reporting scheme. They may as well, or instead of, go and see an occupational physician, in which case we hopefully capture it through OPRA. And both THOR GP and both occupational physicians and GPs can refer onto a secondary specialist. So in this case, it would be referring on to a chest physician where we'd capture the case through SWORD. So focusing specifically on SWORD, the overall aim of SWORD is to determine nationally representative and robust estimates of incidence of occupational respiratory disease, including looking at whether there's been any change or trend in incidence over time. But as well as the overall aim, other important objectives include looking at, see if we can see how respiratory disease varies by factors such as job, age and industry, age and gender, etc. We also use the scheme to try and help identify new causes of disease. We've also recently been trying to evaluate the impact of interventions aimed at reducing the incidence of respiratory disease. And equally important, it serves as an information resource and a network for the physicians that participate. Just to give you an idea of who's actually participating in SWORD, we currently have around 450 chest physicians who are all voluntarily participating. We estimate that that's around 70% of all UK chest physicians. And we have quite good response rates with our schemes in terms of the number of postal cards sent out each month and the number sent back. It's around 63%. So you can see from the spotty map there, that's showing the sort of general locations. So you can see that the physicians are located throughout the UK, but maybe centred around the main population areas. So how do we get good results from our physicians? Well, there's sort of three main areas, I suppose. To begin with, we have to make sure that we've got ongoing good engagement with any relevant bodies, which includes people like the British Thoracic Society, but also the people who fund, well, our main funders, which is the UK Health and Safety Executive. So we make sure that they're invited to meetings, that they can participate in any of the main decision making. They also helpfully will disseminate our information via their newsletters and journals and such like. We also offer them, if they want some data sharing, if they want to request to know about certain diseases, and also we encourage them to co-author publications with us. Obviously, equally important is engagement with the physicians who participate in the scheme. And one of the main things is that we don't want to overburden the physicians when they're reporting. So before we add any extra things we want them to report, we make sure we consult widely with the physicians. And we also offer them different ways to report. Instead, as well as the traditional report card, which they can still use, since about 2010, I think, we've introduced electronic reporting. So now physicians get a username and a password. They can log on via a web form and submit their cases that way. They can also send them in any way they want, really. If they want to write them in an Excel spreadsheet and send them that way, that's fine as well. We even have people who phone up the cases. We also make sure we have good communication in that before their report is due, we remind them, and if they haven't sent in their report, we'll chase them up and send them a reminder that they're supposed to report. They also get regular quarterly reports which will detail all the cases reported in the previous quarter, plus any news about Thor, and then they also get a substantial annual report once a year. There's also free CPD, continuing professional development, for people who participate in our meetings. And we've now developed a CPD online system called eLab for the GPs, which we're trying to extend out to the other physicians. We also offer a data inquiry service where a physician can write in or email us and say, I've seen a case of this, I'd like to know, have you seen other similar cases in your database? And then we'll interrogate our database and provide a summary back to the physician. So it's normally a case of, have you seen disease X in job Y caused by agent Z? And again, as with the funders, we encourage physicians to co-author publications with us, and they do. And then obviously there's engagement with the wider scientific community through promoting Thor at conferences, meetings like today, and through journals, etc. So just to show you, this is what our SWORD reporting card looks like, although we are actually in the process of redesigning it. But this is the front of the card. So you can see that we ask, on the front of the card, we just ask them to summarise the number of cases they've seen within each of the main categories, A to I there. But you can see there's also a category J. So if the physician sees something that doesn't fit in one of the other categories, there's a free text box there for them to write what they've seen. It's equally important, if they don't see anything relevant that month, we ask them to say that and send us the card back. And then on the back of the card, for each of the case that they've summarised on the front, we ask them to give us the details associated with the case. So the group there, that's just the categories of the diagnoses on the front. Reference number is just for them, it's their reference number. Then we ask for gender, age, the first half of the postcode, the industry associated with the case, the job, the suspected agent or agents, they can put as many as they want, and also the start date of onset of symptoms. Okay, so if we look at what we actually get reported to SWORD, this is showing you the estimated diagnoses. I'll talk about estimated and actual in a minute. This is the diagnoses reported over 2002-2013. So you can see we have an annual average estimated cases of 2,422. And if we look at the pie chart, you can see that it's the asbestos-related diseases, non-malignant pleurient disease and mesothelioma, which make up the majority of the case reports to SORD, with a smaller proportion there of asthma, about 12% asthma, and then smaller proportions of the other categories. And in the other category, it tends to be, we get all sorts of things reported, but it's predominantly rhinitis. So just to mention the actual and estimated cases, we have two types of reporters who report to SORD. We have core reporters who tend to be they're a self-selected group in that they tend to be the keenest physicians, and they report every single month to us. And then we also have sample reporters who just report for one randomly chosen month in 12. And if a physician starts off as core and gets a bit tired and wants to swap to sample, they can, and vice versa. So when we talk about actual cases, it's just the core and sample cases added together. But then for our estimated cases, we're multiplying the sample cases first by 12 to estimate a year's worth, and then adding these to the core cases. So if we just have a look at how our cases split by gender, you can see that for all of the diagnoses, the cases are predominantly male, apart from infectious disease, where it's more of a 50-50 split. So if we have a look at how these cases have changed over time, so this is since 1996, and it's showing all respiratory cases reported to SORD. So you can see there has been a general decline over time, which has maybe got a bit flatter in recent years. However, that plot doesn't adjust for the number of reporters reporting to SORD, which will obviously impact on it. So if we actually adjust, this is adjusted for the number of active reporters, which is people who have actually actively responded that month, whether it's to say, I have this many cases, or to say, I have nothing to report. So when we adjust for the number of reporters, you can see there's a fairly flat trend over time. Okay, if we look at asthma. So again, we can look at just a general plot of the numerator cases over time, which is showing you, and again, you can see there's quite a steep decline in the early time, followed by a relatively flat trend. But then, speaking of trends, we have been doing a lot of work in recent years trying to look at these trends more formally. And we've been doing this using a multi-level model, which basically it will take into account factors which might influence this trend, which includes factors such as reporter numbers, also changes in the underlying population, reporter type, whether they're core or sample, whether there's any seasonal pattern in reporting, whether there's any fatigue in reporting. So if we didn't adjust for these factors, then we could be getting a false trend. So if we look at, this is the results of one of these models, and this is for asthma, and it's the main thing to remember is that it's showing change in incidence relative to a set year, and the year here has been set at 2012. So this is showing change in asthma relative to 2012. So similar to the raw plots, you can see again there's a sort of general decrease, but this is steeper in the earlier part. And if we look down the bottom there, it's giving you the overall change if we assume a linear model, which suggests an annual decrease of around 7% per year, which is statistically significant. If we now look at the types of industries and jobs we get reported with our cases, this is showing you the cases by the major industrial division. And as you can see, the majority of the cases come from the manufacturing sector, followed by health and social work and wholesale and retail trade. In the wholesale and retail trade, it's mainly related to car industry. And if we add a denominator onto this, so we can look at the incidence rates. So this is the incidence rates per 100,000 employed, and the denominator we use is the UK Labour Force Survey. So you can see when we add the denominator, the manufacturing sector is still coming out very high, but we also have high incidence rates for agriculture and also for mining and quarrying, although these are based on fairly small cases. Similarly, if we look at the types of jobs we get reported associated with asthma, you can see that there's the bakers and flour confectioners come out very high. Also vehicle spray painters and food, drink and tobacco operatives. And this is just the most frequently reported occupations. We do get a range of occupations. And again, we can add onto this a denominator, so we can look at the incidence rates. And you can see in this case, it's the bakers who have a very, very high incidence compared to the other groups, and also the vehicle spray painters. In addition to job and industry, we also obviously collect information on the type of agents we get reported. So again, we get a whole range of agents reported, but this is just showing you the most frequently reported agents. And it's the isocyanates and flour and cutting oils are the most frequently reported agents. But we also get a lot of laboratory animals and insects. It's also quite interesting to look at how these agents have changed over time. And you can see here, just picking out some of the most frequently reported. Interestingly, most of them, glutaldehyde, isocyanates, colophony, latex, are all showing a general decrease over time. But the one that seems to be going against that trend is flour, which is relatively flat, or if anything, has actually been slightly increasing over time. The multi-level model that I was talking about, in addition to looking at overall trends in incidence, we've recently been extending this method to try and look at the effects of interventions to reduce asthma to specific agents. And some of the agents we've looked at so far are included there. We've looked at latex, glutaldehyde, we have looked at flour, and much of this work has been recently published, and I have a slide at the end which has a list of publications. Thor is part of a group called Moderne, which is a European consortium. It includes about 20 countries now, including Spain is part of the consortium. It's currently chaired by my boss, Professor Ages, and myself and other colleagues are very involved with Moderne. And Moderne has 4 specific working groups, and the second working group is involved with looking at comparing trends in work-related diseases across the 20 European countries. And I think they've selected 4 main diagnoses to look at first, and asthma is one of them. And again, this work is going to be published quite soon. The other data we collect is the length of time between onset of symptom onset and actual consultation with a physician. So you can see here, this is for asthma, seen by chest physicians. So you can see that about 37% of the cases are seen by the physician within the first year, but there is still a substantial proportion, around 25%, that aren't seen until after 4 years of the onset of symptoms. Okay, if we just look at the asbestos-related diseases. So this is the main category of asbestos-related diseases we get reported is the non-malignant pleural disease. So this is showing you the case reports over time. So you can see there was a sort of general increase up to about 2005, after which they've been slowly dropping off. And again, if we look at this more formally by using the multi-level model, so again, this is showing change in incidence of non-malignant pleural disease relative to 2012. So you can see that we get a relatively flat trend, really, which is shown by the value down the bottom there, which suggests a decrease of around 0.5% per year, but this isn't significant. Similarly, if we look at cases of mesothelioma reported to SORD, you can see, again, there were a bit of an increase to begin with, followed by a general decrease, maybe suggestion of it going up again in the past couple of years. And similar to the non-malignant pleural disease, you can see that the trend we get when we use the model is again relatively flat. We don't believe this is a real trend of mesothelioma incidence in the UK. Because by looking at the mesothelioma deaths register, we know that they're increasing and they're likely to peak around 2020. So what we think this actually is reflecting is changes in referral patterns more than anything else. We think that the cases now tend to be referred to other specialties such as oncologists, and they're not being seen by chest physicians, so they're not getting reported to SORD. We can also look at case reports of pneumoconiosis. So the majority, 75% of the cases are attributed to asbestos, but we also get other agents reported, for instance, coal and silica. So again, you can see that overall there's been a general decline in the number of cases that get reported to us. And if we look at the trend using the multi-level model for this group, you can see it's quite messy towards the end there, reflecting the sort of lower numbers we're getting. But again, as with the other asbestos-related diseases, it appears to be relatively flat. The industries that get reported with the asbestos, this is all asbestos-related diseases reported together now. As you'd expect, really, industries where you expect people to come into contact with asbestos: construction, manufacturing, electricity, gas and water supply. And similarly, the types of jobs we get reported are the jobs you'd expect, really. People who have come into contact: carpenters, joiners, electricians, metalworking, production and maintenance fitters, plumbers, labourers in construction. And we also have the dockyard workers, which tend to be the more very historical cases, and painters and decorators. I've calculated incidence rates here for the most frequently reported occupations. But one of the main issues we have here, obviously, is that these diseases are long latency, and when we're calculating our incidence rates, we're using current denominators, which it's not going to be right. So at the moment, this is the best we can do with this, but we are currently trying to improve how to calculate these incidence rates for long latency diseases. So you can see anyway, bearing that in mind, if we do adjust for the population, it's the dockyard workers and metal plate workers, shipwrights that come out high, but this is probably because there's not so many people working in those industries nowadays. If we also look at the length of time between symptom onset and reporting for these asbestos-related respiratory diseases, as you'd expect, really, not given how quickly it progresses, not much time between symptom onset. So we've got 3 months for mesothelioma, an average of around 5 months for the pleural plaques, and 12 months for the pneumoconiosis. And one of our physicians asked at one of our annual meetings, how do people even record this, because there are no symptoms, it just happens straight away, which you can see reflected by in the table down the bottom, the no SO data. For the plaques, quite a large proportion of physicians don't provide this data because they don't have this data. Just a quick look at what else we get reported. So in 2013, this is showing you the other diagnoses that we had reported to SORD. So you can see most other category was rhinitis. So we had 37 cases of rhinitis. This is just in 1 year. And listed there are the agents that were reported as associated with these cases. So you can see we've got flour, amylase, rats, mice, usual suspects. We also had 12 cases of lung cancer, which the physician had decided was work-related and had decided that was attributed to asbestos. We also had 10 allergic alveolitis with the agents there. 3 cases of infectious disease, and 1 inhalation accident which was attributed to chlorine. We also have the other respiratory category down the bottom there, which are for those diagnoses that the physician can't place anywhere else. And you can see we had a few toxoid reaction, which it was in a policeman who had been exposed to cannabis. We also had bronchiolitis and interstitial lung disease. The other thing, it's important to remember that SORD is not the only source of respiratory data that we collect in Thor. We also have the occupational physicians who have been reporting since 1996 and the GPs who have been reporting since 2005. They can both report any type of respiratory disease. So you can see the pie chart there shows what they actually report. So respiratory cases are a very small component of what they both report. 2% of the GP cases and 3% of the OP cases. And predominantly they report mental ill health or musculoskeletal disorders. However, if we do look at the types of respiratory cases they report and compare these to the cases reported by the chest physicians, you can see that the OPs and GPs are different to the chest physicians, as you'd expect probably, in that they report a far greater proportion of asthma and a smaller proportion of the asbestos-related diseases. They also tend to assign a lot more of their cases to the other respiratory category. And this is because OPs and GPs in particular will often just report symptoms. They might say cough, wheeze, and these symptoms may well be asthma, but if they haven't themselves made the diagnosis, then we don't make the diagnosis at our end. One of the extra things we collect with the GP scheme is that we ask them to report any certified sickness absence associated with the cases, or whether there's been any workplace recommendation with the cases. So this is showing you there's been 160 cases reported to Thor GP since 2006. Of these, 31% have had sickness certification certified, with a greater proportion, 63%, have had no sickness absence certified. And only 6% of these have had a workplace fit note adjustment recommended. And in the bubbles on the left there, you can see what the GP has recommended. And some of them you can see are probably more helpful than others. Merely stop working with the agent doesn't really help. One of the benefits of having these multiple sources of respiratory data within Thor is that it enables us to compare or triangulate the results, both from our different data sources, but also with other external sources. For example, the survey of the self-reported work-related illness survey, which is a survey in the UK, well, which, as it says, is for people to self-report if they have an illness. So, as you'd expect, really, given that the SWI is based on self-reports, that has the highest incidence, followed by GPs, which, again, everybody has access to a GP, so that's not surprising. And the OP and chest physicians have a smaller incidence. I just have 2 slides about this type of data requests we get to Thor. So again, this is just showing you the data requests we had last year. So we had 41. So the majority of these requests will come from our main funder, which is the UK Health and Safety Executive. But you can see that we also do get a good proportion from our physicians, including the SORD reporters, the occupational physicians and other reporters. And we also get requests from other research bodies, universities, just people, the general public even. We get a lot of data requests normally. So this is just providing you some examples of the type of requests we had in 2013. So it may be that people just ask for a general overview of related to a specific disease, or they may be very precise and want to know, let's see if we'll find one there. But yeah, they might be very precise and want to know within a specific job. But we do get a wide range of respiratory data requests. And obviously, in addition to the respiratory data requests, we also get data requests relating to all the other schemes that we collect. Okay, so I'll just final with the discussion. So I hope that I've demonstrated that the voluntary data, to remember this data is all these physicians are participating voluntary. So the voluntary data by trained physicians can provide data which will help identify occupations, industries which might be at increased risk. The data is also useful and can be used to demonstrate trends in incidence over time, and also to look at the effect of specific interventions aimed at reducing respiratory disease. And also with the GP scheme, the data can enable us to look at factors which affect work-related sickness absence. Just to quickly give you, just to show you that we don't do the research and it stays with us, it does actually have some impact on the UK policy. So this is just showing you some case studies some examples of where THOR data has been used to influence policy in the UK. So this is mainly through the Health and Safety Executive and generally relating to asthma. So I've included here a slide of further reading. So this slide includes the sort of main recent papers that have come out of SWORD, which includes work relating to looking at the interventions, trends. We've also carried out studies looking at whether our different physicians diagnose asthma differently, for instance, the chest physicians and the occupational physicians. So if you'd like to know more about SWORD, these are good papers to read. And thank you very much.